peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.
Good afternoon, viewers. Thank you very much. Welcome to Punchline Africa Television. This is the television station for Africa with Africa by Africa. This afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, on the panel, all the way from other parts of the world, in Kenya, in Africa, across the continent of Africa, I just want to send you salutations that yesterday we marked Samora Machel, the day he died in an aircraft memorial service that was held in Maputo. Across in Maputo, we shall have Piero Lumumba if he has not boarded his plane, but he said he will join us in the course of the discussion. He gave a very powerful lecture. Where are we going? Where is Africa heading? This afternoon, the topics are freelance, and I will introduce on several topics, country by country, and we talk about it since we know the problems, what ails these countries. I am Dr. David Matsanga, Punchline Africa Television, right from the Political Command Center in Nairobi. We are talking, are you hearing me?
Yes, but we lost you there for a few seconds, but you're back now.
I think, just give me a minute, Miriam.
All right. Okay, so as we wait for Doc to sort his side of the connection, I'll perhaps introduce the panelists this afternoon. I'll bring in Dr. Joseph Nyanchama. Doctor, very good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Miriam. It's my pleasure, of
All right, and we also do have
course,
Samson.
to be in Punchline Africa, where actually.
Very well, it seems to be losing also Dr. Joseph Nyanchama, but I'll just move on to Samson Omechi. Samson, good afternoon to you.
Oh, good afternoon, Miriam.
All right, and we have also Samuel Tawish. Tawish, good afternoon. So, excuse me, Samson, if you can look for a more quieter place, we will appreciate it, because that noise will affect the quality of our broadcast, please.
I'm still looking for the place. I'm almost in the office.
All right, so once you get it, then we can connect back to you. Thank you. Samuel Tawish, good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you, Miriam Mugutu. Good afternoon to colleague panelists and Dr. David Masanga, and all to our viewers who are watching this program.
All right, and we're also joined by Jevan Karanja. Karanja, very good afternoon to you.
Indeed, it's a very good afternoon to you, Miriam. Good afternoon to Dr. David Masanga and the rest of the panelists. It's always a pleasure being on Punchline Africa Television. Thank you.
All right, nice to have you, Doc. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Miriam, for that introduction. Welcome back, Javan Karanja. We have been the soldiers on foot. We have been moving forward, left and right in the country. Africa is heading in a disaster. Good afternoon, all of you. Let's look at the news headlines across the continent of Africa, but starting with Kenya first. Back to you, Miriam Ogutu, in the studio.
Very well, thank you, Doc. So on the Sunday Standard, the main headline on the Sunday Standard is the Battle of Weeds and Brands in top race for the State House hopefuls. The rebranding journey has started from their dress code to messaging and choice of people accompanying them to events. They aren't leaving anything to chance. The story is on page 6. And why 2022 polls will be do or die for the big two. The story is on page 22 and 23. For Waiguru, it's a delicate political math in Kirinyaga. The story is on page 5. An audit, counties spent 12 billion Kenya shillings on travel during lockdown. The story is on page 32 and 33. 12 billion Kenya shillings. Where were they traveling to? And there was a lockdown. Doc, perhaps you can tell us. And on Sunday Nation, the main headline, the war in UDA. That is the main headline. And Waiguru, my house gets a bit lonely at times, and why Ruto is king of Mount Kenya. The stories on page 10 and 11 of the Sunday Nation. And just down there, to Jubilee Party bigwigs want me out of Pangani. So that is what we have on the two leading newspapers this afternoon.
Thank you very much. First of all, Miriam, I am one of the few people who has never hesitated to tell the world the truth. That without a unity of purpose, without a unity of consensus, without a reconciliation, without tolerance, without forgiveness, without reparation, restitution, without accountability, without truth-telling, we can do our campaigns, we can run up and down, do whatever we want to do. Believe me or not, it still remains the same until we are there. Until we get a redemption strategy working in Kenya, nothing. These rallies, this branding, but of branding, you can wear, we can change the suits the way we want. We can wear the Turkish clothes like where Ruto is wearing Turkish clothes, not African. You know, he has been married completely to Turkey, married, shoes, everything is Turkish. It will all count back to one thing, Miriam. And that one thing will be, if we don't have peace, let's forget about whatever we are trying to do at the moment. If we don't have a redemption strategy. I see so many people talked about the BBI. They hated the BBI. But today they are coming back to the same thing. You are lucky that in Kenya you have a very good president. A president who does not follow, who is not inquisitive. A president who does not fight. A president who does not want to hear any Kenyan who's being brutalized. But if you had some presidents across the continent of Africa, some of them even mentioning the name alone in a public place, you are reached. You would be very good people. Two things have touched me this morning. I'm not going to go into the newspapers because people can pick anything from the newspaper and discuss. I'll look at what Professor Peter Kagwanja has written, and possibly Makau Mutua. Those are the people that I usually like to read their pieces because at times they stand above petty politics that dwells in the valleys, in the mountains of Kenya. So I'll look at that and see. But two things have merged: the judiciary and then the bad behavior, the morality. If you look at the way Boniface Mwangi has drawn pictures and depicted President Uhuru Kenyatta, I think we deserve to be checked. Our heads in Africa, especially Mwangi, deserves mental case in Mathare where he originated from. You see, once a leopard remains a leopard. You grew up in a ghetto and you remain a ghetto with a ghetto behavior. There are people who improve from the ghetto and learn new behaviors and adapt to the new conditions. But this guy cannot adapt to any new condition. He's still insulting the president. He's still besmirching the president's name. He's still going ahead despite the good things that the president has done. Who has not seen the good things? Yesterday, Kenya opened the first cancer molecular laboratory on African continent. We have been spending money going to India. People have been dying of cancer. These are good things that we want to look at as the legacy of President Uhuru Kenyatta. We want him to be given enough time, ample time to put this country so that we can use those roads, so that the roads that they are constructing around Nairobi, if you look at the roads that are being constructed, Nairobi has become a construction site because of Uhuru Kenyatta. He has done great things. He's doing great things internationally. If you look at the international map, you don't mention any African country anymore. South Africa and Nigeria used to top. But today, you talk about Africa, anybody in a plane flying across from Kenya or from anywhere, you say, where do you come from? Oh, are you from Kenya? People ask you those questions. To me, I believe this is the time for us to look at our moralities and don't lower our brains beyond. Miriam, those who killed Julius Caesar regretted when the Roman Empire disintegrated. It is not Julius Caesar who regretted, he died and went. But it's those who remained behind, Brutus and his group, regretted why they killed Julius Caesar. Immediately after the death of Julius Caesar, the Roman Empire disintegrated, bringing in the worst cannibals that ever lived in the Roman Empire history. For those who are very upset with President Uhuru Kenyatta, mark those words, read the books, the Shakespearean books, the plays of Julius Caesar. You will find all this written there, that Brutus, who is William Ruto, who has plotted to kill the dream of President Uhuru Kenyatta, remains the main beneficiary after. If he succeeds to kill the dream, corruption will be rampant here. Miriam, another point I want to make home before I leave the stage and watch and listen to other panelists is the question of 6,000,000 Kenya shillings per household. People are mistaking Raila to have said per youth. No, household. It is possible. It is possible once you purge corruption. Philippines is giving the money. Where is the Philippines getting the money? They are purging up in the Philippines. We can have our labor. Our girls are being mistreated in Saudi Arabia because they go there in a not organized manner. Our men are being mistreated in Saudi Arabia. They are raped by men, by the Arabs. We can package this as an employment package for each month. If everybody who has gone to suffer, if you get 5,000 workers who have been exported to Qatar, for example, who has been exported to Saudi Arabia, each sending back 5,000 minimum, $5,000 pounds or dollars per month. Look at how the economy of Kenya will be. Even if the money is coming to private individuals don't eat the money. Private individuals use the money amongst the public. If you are building a very nice home in Bungoma, because the money has come from the employment of your son in Saudi Arabia, Raila Amolo Odinga is proposing such packages. Lastly, people talk about Singapore. How did Singapore come about to exist as it is today? Singapore killed people who touched money. And therefore we have to, if Kenya is to move forward, Kenya has to kill some people who have touched money, who economic crime makers must be dealt with a blow such that corruption is feared. Corruption, people fear to do any bribes. That is where the money is going. The panel should consider looking at changing the law and getting the laws very clear that once you touch government money and misappropriate it, you either go to committee, we don't see you for a long time. And therefore, even if we don't kill you, because there is no law in Kenya that allows a firing squad, we should be considering those type of things, not to consider bottoms up, a mere slogan. Well, how will you fight, bring money to Mama Mboga, 100 million, when corruption, even the officers giving the money to Mama Mboga are corrupt, Miriam? Time has come to interrogate. I saw an opinion poll done by a newspaper which has been bought by William Ruto, that giving William Ruto 57%. Wapi, ya wapi, because you are running on your own. You are in the race alone. You are in the race alone, Miriam. So William Ruto runs alone and then gets 57%. Thank you. Others have not come in the same race. You have been campaigning for 4 years. 4 years, William Ruto has been on the move, lying to the president that he was able, he was doing some things, yet he was not doing anything but doing campaigns. So if it gives him 57%, then he's very stupid and naive, because he should be getting 100%. Since he has been running alone. Those are some of my views that I wanted to put forward. I don't want to go much in a newspaper unless you have a specific question to ask me. I'm here.
All right, but I'd like to bring in Dr. Joseph Nyanchama. Anything that you've picked from the newspaper, or anything that you'd like to talk about that is happening in Kenya politically and otherwise?
Okay, thank you, Miriam. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. You know, I've also been following the sentiments of some of the political leaders. I sometimes wonder, Miriam, because they talk of models. Certain models, by the way, are hinged on loose ends. And let me, for example, pick the model of whatever is called model, and it's not a model, by the way. It's called bottom-up. And one of the slogans, which is
We seem to be having a problem with your connection, Dr. Joseph Nyanchama. I don't know if you can hear me. Or well, I think I'll go to Samson Omechi. I don't know if you're at a more quieter place.
Thank you, Miriam, for having me on the panel. I want to greet everybody. Pleasure to be here again.
Yes.
And I want to start with the issue of campaigns, and to the effect that the same is being narrowed down to the two horses. I think it's too early now to start in fact making it a two horse race, because it has been root all along. In fact, it has not even started. It's just warming up. It has not even declared. At the end of the day, the issue of bottom-up is going to rose at some point. Because what we are dealing with as a country is nothing but corruption. The economic model is not capable.
Mm-hmm.
The economic model is not capable to deal with corruption. Ruto has been all around talking about the bottom-up. Ruto has been running around since 2018, campaigning about the 2022. And now, if you go back to history and history can prove me right, all departments where Ruto sponsored his people, corruption was so rampant. And the country cannot trust Ruto because Ruto is not keen on the fight against corruption. It is this Ruto who has been politicizing the fight against corruption as pure politics. It is not lost on our mind that during the period between 2013 and 2017, corruption was so rampant. And after the handshake, when Raila came in to assist the president to achieve his legacy, corruption has gone down. And we can see Kenya is doing well under the leadership of President Uhuru Kenyatta. And now, we only want to have a leader in place who can guarantee this growth, who can guarantee this democracy, because it's only in Africa where you can abuse a president and you walk free. Who has been a president who has been around everybody around to talk about him, to abuse him. He's busy working. He has no time to respond. And that is the trajectory that we want to progress going forward. And as the voice of workers, we are saying that it's only Uhuru who has now made it possible for the economy to grow, and to that extent, we are in fact supporting the president to complete his legacy. And going forward, we are not going to support people who are not sure of what they are going to achieve if they have not failed to achieve well in office. Ruto has been a deputy president since 2013. This model is now coming up with. He could have used the same model since 2013 to support Kenyans. If we need is serious, Ruto is just but choking. He's trying to choke around with the integrity, the intelligence of Kenyans. But I doubt whether he's going to succeed. We are keen to support the president's legacy. We are keen to support anyone who is keen to deal with corruption. What is killing our economy as a country, as a nation, is nothing but corruption. That's my submission.
All right, thank you so much, Samson Omechi. And speaking about corruption, as I was reading through the headlines there on the Sunday Standard, there's an audit that was carried out that now shows that counties spend about 12 billion Kenya shillings on travel during lockdown. We had a lockdown, nobody was traveling, but apparently our county spent about 12 billion Kenya shillings to travel. I'm not sure to where. Samuel Tawish.
Thank you very much, Miriam. Thank you to colleague panelists, most of those who have made a contribution ahead of me. Miriam, indeed, I'm not surprised that the county governments have been indicted of having looted money to a tune of 12 billion Kenya shillings. Miriam, in fact, you will be surprised that even as you talk about 12 billion, if a thorough audit is being done, you'll get to understand that it could even be more than 12 billion. And Miriam, this kind of unnecessary expenditure at the expense of service delivery for the people of Kenya is something that we should be called out, because the essence and the purpose of devolution was to devolve services to the grassroots, to devolve services to the ordinary mwananchi back at home. And this was not meant really to devolve corruption from, of course, from the central government or from Nairobi to the county governments. I remember Dr. Masanga speaking about why devolution and having the county governments and the governors coming from respective tribes. Say, for example, if you go to Turkana, you have a governor who comes from the same place, who is a Turkana, that we are going to create political warlords. And I think Dr. Masanga's, of course, what he had foreseen is what has come to pass, Miriam. that these leaders have not been very busy or even so much engaged on providing service delivery to the ordinary Mwananchi, but they have taken this opportunity only to swindle the money that would have otherwise gone to uplift the lives of the people. But I think even as we head into the 2022 general election, Miriam, it is now a very big challenge to the people who go to vote, who give these people these jobs, that they have to vet and watch out critically individuals really who deserve this position, so that we do not continue singing the same song but still expect different results. Away from that, Miriam, if I should get it to a bit of some politics in the country, I think my other colleague panelists have spoken widely, including Dr. Masanga himself, that we have a very bad culture in this country, that when we get into elections like we are heading now into 2022 general election, politicians come with a barrage of promises. They come with so lofty promises telling people what they're going to do. But I think Samson has posed a very good question. For a case of Deputy President William Ruto, who has been in power as the second in command, the Deputy President with an office fully resourced, fully funded, how come that he's not been able really to do or even come up with economic models that is now, of course, selling out to people in the hope that they will vote for him, because he feels maybe by doing that he will bring the people of Kenya into believing that he can be an economic savior to the problems that you are facing in this country economically, Miriam. I do not believe so, because William Ruto has been tested. He's a man who's been in power. We've seen what he's been able to do and what he's not been able to do. Now he cannot come and purport to be the person who can provide answers to the problems that people of Kenya are facing. In any case, Miriam, we will attribute most of the challenges. And if you talk about for example, the people of Rift Valley, most of the Kalenjin nation, that is the food basket of this country. You just had the other day when we had the Azimio la Umoja conference, of course, in Eldoret. And it was, the leadership and the people drawn from almost 4 or 5 counties, they were speaking about why it has become so difficult for them even to produce food, how the cost of the farm inputs have gone high. Even the market for their produce, it's a nightmare to them. And they have a person in the name of Deputy President William Ruto, who comes from that particular region, who was once a Minister for Agriculture, who has been a Deputy President in the Republic of Kenya for the last about 9 years, but he has not provided any single solution to the people of Rift Valley, Miriam. The problem cascades to almost every part of the country. If you go to other places in the country, look at what happened with the Kimorera and the road dams in Elgeyo Marakwet. Examples, Miriam, are countless. But what am I trying to say in essence? I think this is the opportunity for the people of Kenya really to vet out these individuals and get to understand who has a model or an economic model that is sustainable. When Raila Odinga speaks about giving 6,000 shillings to the vulnerable families, or to those who cannot, maybe those who are underprivileged, he does not intend to give this forever. I think it is just bring them at par so that they can be able at least to do something for themselves. And he has given us a clear roadmap and a clear master plan on how he intends to achieve this. For example, if he's going to seal the loopholes of corruption, I've never seen Deputy President William Ruto even speak on any podium, on any forum about his resolve to fight corruption in this country. In fact, it surprises me. In a country where corruption has become a very big menace, when presidential candidates are going around to campaign, I would expect that Deputy President William Ruto will come and speak about corruption and how his administration, assuming that he becomes the president, intends to tackle that monster called corruption. But he cannot speak about it because he knows he's a culprit. Let me submit for now, Miriam, and allow other panelists to make their submissions.
Very well. Samuel Tawish.
Yeah, Miriam, let the panelists please quick make points 2, 3, 4. We don't have much time. We want to go to African, make it quick, please.
All right, Javan.
Thank you very much, Miriam, and I agree with the rest of the panelists. And first and foremost, I'll say that these two, as we head in 2020 general election, we are presented we have two horse. It's kind of a 2-horse race between the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga and the Deputy President William Ruto. But it's time for Kenyans to come and look on what the two candidates have to offer. When you look at Raila Odinga, he has a very good plan on how he will caution Kenyans especially the unemployed youth and families who are going through economic hardships through his social scheme, where they're getting a total of 6,000 on monthly basis. And a lot of people have poked hole on that plan. But Miriam, the president himself, President Uhuru Kenyatta, said it on a lighter note that this country loses about 2 billion shillings a day, Miriam. If we can afford to lose that big amount, Miriam, I see it is possible to have 6,000 a monthly money going to that scheme. Therefore, at the end of the day, those people who feel like this 6,000 amount is not something that can be achieved, I want to tell them this is a reality. If we can afford 2,000 for the 70 years and above, Miriam, we can also afford this money, because the amount of money that we lose as a country through corruption is quite big than the amount of money that the former prime minister is trying to bring on board. But there are people, Miriam, in this country who are known to thrive in a country that is chaotic, a country that is divisive, and a country where corruption is lucrative. And that team is led by the deputy president. That is why they feel like this plan will not work. But at the end of the day, Miriam, I wish the former prime minister will get to State House so that he can prove to these people that his agenda is an agenda that will transform the livelihood of Kenyans. And these are not handouts. I heard the deputy president condemning the 6,000 kitty, saying that that is a culture of tokenism. And Miriam was surprised when deputy president talks of tokenism, when at the same very event, he was giving unga to Mama Mbogas. He was giving 2,000 shillings to the youth. Therefore, I was wondering, if you're condemning handouts, why are you coming in this meeting carrying a rolly of unga and sugar and rice? Miriam, to me, I feel those are amounts to handouts. Therefore, as leaders, we need also to be critical when we condemn and criticize others, when we are doing the same things that we are supposed to condemn. And Miriam, on the side of deputy president, he has been around this country for 4 years, selling the hustlerism agenda, selling the Huiruballonomics and others. But Miriam, when you look at the two agendas now, because now we have an opportunity to compare between the wheelbarrows and the 6K, a lot of Kenya are seeing some kind of sense with this 6,000 compared to this wheelbarronomics and the bottom-up agenda, that those who are pushing it cannot even explain what they mean by bottom-up. Therefore, at the end of the day, Kenyans are presented with a reality and a deceptive agenda. Therefore, it's upon them to determine which route they want to take. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Daniel Wesunga.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Miriam, and of course, my fellow panelists. And to me, I'll be very brief as possible because my fellow panelists have actually exhausted the field. But I would really like to say that the contest in 2022 is a very easy one. A contest between integrity and corruption, a contest between idealism and populism. And that puts William Ruto against Raila Odinga in a stark difference. It is like day and night. When you look at Raila Odinga, he's known as a reformist, someone who fought for the second liberation, the rights that we're enjoying right now in terms of even speaking out and posting anything on social media, anything that you want. But William Ruto is someone who has worked with a dark regime. During the KANU era, he was a leader of YK92, a very vicious group of young people who actually had a purge on the proponents of the multi-party democracy. So to me, I think Kenyans have a very easy choice to choose between destruction and prosperity. And that is what President Uhuru Kenyatta always says, that he wants to leave Kenyans in a safe pair of hands. And when you see Raila Odinga coming up with Azimio la Umoja, that is a reincarnation of the redemption strategy that Dr. Matsanga has always talked about, which forms the basis of the BBI agenda to restore peace, unity, and prosperity for the people of Kenya. So to me, Miriam, the choice is as simple as that. Either Kenyans choose to invest in prosperity through electing the right candidate, that is Raila Odinga, or they choose to throw their ambitions and dreams into the dungeons and the gallows of populist politics by electing William Samoei Ruto. So let Kenyans, as they take their votes, as they register to vote, and others prepare to cast their ballot come next year, August 2022, let them have that in mind, that they only have two choices to make, and that is between Raila Odinga and William Ruto, and the differences are very stark. I submit, Miriam.
Thank you. Professor Jared Onyari.
Thank you, Miriam, for this good topic that we are discussing with the panelists have actually said. But let me just have this, Miriam. If you want to believe a politician, do it at your own peril.
Professor, your connection is not, Professor, your connection is not very clear. Your connection is not very good. A lot of echoing, and we can't really get what you're saying. All right, we seem to be having a bit of a problem with the prof, so I'll just...
I'm saying, Miriam, you believe a politician at your own peril. A politician will tell you this when he means the opposite. Miriam, among all the presidential contenders for 2022, there is none who has addressed corruption, Miriam. And remember, this politician at one point in time, Miriam, they have worked together. So, Miriam, what we need to do here is that I want to urge those who have got the position to continue steering, because that's the only thing now remaining for me to advise Kenyans. If you get something, you run away with it. Our president has assured us that the 2 billion get lost every other day. What action has been taken to those people who are stealing millions?
I really don't know.
The point I'm saying, I'm not telling Kenyans to go and steal. I'm telling Kenyans to be in charge and fight corruption. Nobody. If you see, as the president lives at the legacy, he has tried his best to ensure that he has fought corruption. But the people around him have let him down, Miriam. So Kenyans will be in charge, fight corruption. Even the 6,000, the prime minister is trying to say, Miriam, if we tempt corruption, I'm sure we can be able to caution the most vulnerable people, Miriam. As we enter the election is a period, Miriam, now. And I want to thank Punch African TV show, Dr. Masanga, for having given us this opportunity, Miriam, to ventilate and tell Kenyans on how to move during this time where people are coming to appear like angels. And I want to agree with one of the panelists, Samson. The deputy president has been a deputy president for the last 9 years. Let him tell us. He tried to do this and someone stopped him, Miriam. So from where I sit, Miriam, I have looked at what the prime minister is about to is saying and appealing to Kenyans, Miriam. Perhaps I'm persuaded to believe that at least he can change this country, Miriam, because he has been doing things consistent. But my fellow Kenyans, if we don't fight corruption, this country is going to be no more, and you are not going to have a country. Okay. I submit, Miriam.
All right, and Prof, there's a lot of wind and poor connection, so I don't know if at all you can find a better location. If not, then I'm afraid.
Miriam,
yes.
Miriam,
yes.
How can he find a location in Lamu? This guy is in Lamu near the sea. Let him position his camera away from the water waves.
Okay, Miriam, I didn't finish, sorry.
Yeah. Professor Gerard Onyari, please. Yes.
Dr. Nyanchama did not finish. He had a bit of a connection interruption there earlier, so he's...
yes, for me, what I was saying, Miriam, you had asked about the contenders for 2022. One of them has proposed an economic model, a bottom-up, which is hinged on loose ends. That's what I was saying. What is very interesting, my fellow panelists need to note, is the slogan is talking about kazi ni kazi. What is your take, my fellow panelists? Can you imagine pickpocketers in the street? Are you telling them hata hiyo ni kazi? What are you telling young girls who are suffering out of poverty, who are doing prostitution? Are you saying hata hiyo ni kazi? I mean, we should grow up and say that slogan should stop being propagated even in the newsrooms, because it is encouraging youth who are doing wrong things by telling them kazi ni kazi. That one aside, Miriam, I want to say something using my expertise from financial aspect and this relates to the other contender, who's the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga. The 6,000 shillings is not a token. It is, there are those ones who are not able to get the bearing, who are so poor that at least you can give them something to start visualizing on how to live their great purpose. This one has been tried in the Philippines and even in Brazil. Brazil, by the way, 2003. What needs to be noted here, Miriam, is this. Let's now speak from the economics aspect. It is useful to bear in mind that the microeconomic achievement of any country are of little consequences if we do not satisfy socially desirable objectives. And that is why what the Prime Minister is focusing, the 6,000 is focusing on the socially desirable objectives as the very citizens who are being assisted get the bearing. In fact, economics may be of no value without social outcomes. I think that is why the Prime Minister is focusing from the social aspect. As far as his opponent is concerned, he is loosely coming up with a model which is not tied at the ends, which is merely an expressive of an idea where even those supporting it cannot, in fact, crack it to explain those who need explanation. In essence, what am I saying? We need to put some of these leaders into order and should not go to a level where they mislead Kenyans. Finally, I want to correct Professor Nyari. I want to give him a benefit of doubt. That was a slip of the tongue. When he's advising Kenyans, whoever gets anything, run with it. No. We cannot accept it. We cannot accept that discussion in this TV. Professor, you need to apologize. Yes. And I want to give you a benefit of doubt. That was a slip of the tongue. For now, Miriam, I submit.
Miriam, let me just clear myself. I did say, I'm now at the point of advising Kenyans to stop, to steal, get anything, you run away. We can't watch people stealing from us. But I said in the end, and I gave a rider, that we should go and slay corruption because it is going to destroy this country. I'm not telling people to go and steal, Dr. Nyanchama. I'm trying to appeal to Kenyans. If they cannot fight corruption, then go and steal.
Miriam, are you controlling this debate? Because I don't see the direction of where Professor Onyali is advising us to go and steal. I see Professor Onyali advising us to steal whatever we get, run away. Then he comes to put a rider. A rider, you have already told a thief to go and steal. What will the rider? Professor Onyali, you are going to Lamu has caused us a very big disadvantage. I don't know what is going on in Lamu. But I would like to advise that please, you can't advise people to go and steal. Joseph, I also had the same. So, Professor, I think either he may withdraw the rider or clarify to us before we move to another topic, please.
Miriam, they are pushing me to the corner to apologize.
Yeah, because you are the only professor. Listen
to me, Dr. Masanga. You want me to apologize? The people say, if you want to remain cold, be cold. If you want to be warm, be warm. Don't be a lukewarm. We cannot watch and we cannot be told 2 billion Kenyan shillings is being stolen, and we are watching and we are not fighting. The least we can do is to fight that corruption. The best we can do is to take the little we can have. So I'm telling Kenyans, if we have to protect our resources, Dr. Masanga, we have to fight corruption. Which other way do you want me to say, Dr. Masanga? We say let us fight corruption and we are not annoyed. 2 billion Kenyans is being stolen every other day, and the Kenyans are not getting annoyed, Dr. Masanga.
Okay.
Dr. Masanga.
Yes.
Okay,
I'm telling Kenyans to be annoyed.
The Bible says, Professor, the Bible says you must be at the extreme end. Either you condemn corruption or you don't. So you cannot say, if this is not happening, now do this. No, then you are staying in the middle.
He has
now,
can
I come in to balance the equation? I can see the anger that Professor Onyali has, that 2 billion shillings have been stolen. We have watched people who have stolen it walking free. Isn't that the point you are coming from, Professor Onyali?
You have gotten me right, Dr. Masanga.
Yes, you have watched the people stealing it, driving, buying helicopters. They are here, they are still coming to even pollute the air more with their noise of helicopters every morning. But we have done nothing. Now, Dr. Joseph Nachama is saying, you can never be in just to balance, just in the middle. He wants an extreme position where either you condemn fully that corruption is bad, whoever is doing it, or you accept it is a good thing, you join them. So in that nutshell, it looks like corruption will be our main topic this week. Let's come in, let's cool it there. All people are angered. Dr. Joseph Nachama and Professor Onyali, every Kenyan is angered. Not only Kenyan, Africans are angered about corruption. And it is not only happening in Kenya, it is happening across Africa. Every country you find now, there is corruption. If you tell me that there was a lockdown and then the governor spent money on lockdown, so were they locked down in their homes and they spent that money? Or what was it so big? Were they transporting dead bodies from one mortuary to another mortuary? What was the big thing that took 12 billion shillings in devolution? Surely, Miriam, your country is bleeding. Do you transport dead bodies? Maybe Kenya sells dead bodies at night, where governors, I have told you time and time again, and I agree with Tawish, that the biggest mistake that Kenya made is to have governors coming from their own areas. If you are from Nyamira, you want a governor from Nyamira. If you are from DC, Turkana, there is another one who spends more time in Nyayo Estate in Kenya with a girlfriend more than Turkana. Nanok is ever there. Then when does he do the work of a governor? You know, a lot of money has been pumped in Turkana. And today Turkanas call us for food. Surely, stupid. This is very stupid. And it's stupid of the highest degree. And I agree with Onyari. At times you have to insult these guys. A governor is spending time with the girlfriend in Nyayo Estate in Nairobi. Also trying to wear shoes. These shoes from Italy. Well, not Italy, where Turkey with Ruto moving around. People are dying in Turkana. The biggest country that has got money in this country since devolution started is Turkana. But because Nanoko used not to have shoes, he went and bought shoes only. He shows us on TV his shoes. Yes. And the medium, you brought this topic, therefore you have to comment on it. I am commenting because nobody seems to have answered this. A lockdown costing money. How? How? Can somebody explain to me how the governor spent money on lockdown to keep what? Gold in the counties. Was there gold? Armory? Is there an armory of arms? I thought the lockdown could reduce the amount of expenditure. Isn't it, Miriam? Because you are not traveling very far. But in the lockdown, they still kept the people to take them to Mombasa. I am so scared about this country, where people, a simple trip a simple organization carries its people to go and eat food in Mombasa. Why didn't we build the International Conference Center, KICC? Why did we build KICC for? Why did we build the government institution in Kabete, Lower Kabete? Why did we have Bomas of Kenya? Isn't it cheaper to have a conference in Bomas in Kenya and the people go home and go to Nairobi only than transporting people from Turkana to Mombasa just to spread the disease? Is it? I'm bringing the topic, but it is a big topic. Therefore, we have reached the top of our hour. Medium, let's switch on. That is the way corruption. I agree with both Dr. Nyachama and Dr. Onyari that Onyari's talk was annoyed. He's annoyed, yes. He has a right as a Kenyan to speak out. 2 billion shillings per day going out, and we know the people. The law, the constitution, when you send them to the judges have become more or less of activists. They tell you that even the Huduma number, which is required worldwide, is very wrong. Hey, oh my God, I don't know. We have a problem here. Then Joseph is actually saying, let's be very firm. Let's not allow people to steal. But what can we do, Joseph? We don't have a constitution that allows us to put them on firing squad, Onyari. We take them to the courts and they are released by the courts. Thank you very much, comrades, for contribution on that subject. Let's wait and discuss it further. But it is a mixed bag of both emotions and a calamity. When you mix emotions and a calamity, you get disaster. Onyadi knows what it means, and Dr. Nyachama. If you mix those cocktails, you get a disaster. One of the biggest disasters of Kenya is the devolution. Devolution is a disaster, is a good thing, but a disaster. You made people so rich who can become political warlords anytime. 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 And don't tell me that I am saying it will happen. It will happen. You think sometime to come you will take that oil from Turkana. The Turkana will say we need the money cash first before the oil passes. So we've created, we must handle these things. Structures must be harnessed, corruption must be wiped out. Thank you very much, the panel. Let's switch on to Africa. And on this topic and the segment, I want Miriam to lead us. If you have a country that you want to put up your hand, I want to change the style for us. Instead of Miriam telling us roll call, if you have a point, just do the buzzer. If you have a country that you want to speak about, do the buzzer. Do the buzzer. Well, you know how to open the hand, open it and tell us you want to speak on country X. Thank you. Who is to go first? My panel, are you there or you are here? Is this new method has created a problem? If you have anything to speak about any country in Africa, put up your hand with Songa and don't wait for anybody. Tell us and we give you space. Okay, it looks like I will introduce, Wesonga. Which country
thank you.
Say your country and go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Masanga, David. And me, on my side, I'd really like to speak about Zimbabwe. and that is according to whatever is happening there in the leadership of President Emerson Mnangagwa. And Zimbabwe has been seeing a lot of infrastructural development. We have been seeing even the media freedom, people being able to speak out, the activists and all that. So to me, I think it is a country that is actually on upward mobility, and we should watch it closely in terms of how they are dealing with their infrastructural development, in terms of opening up roads, in terms of how they are actually giving their country an incentive to manufacturing and food processing and all those industries that create employment to the young people. But also another thing to look out is the opposition party, MDC. We've seen that this week we've been having a lot of news of MDC actually trying to sabotage the leadership of President Mnangagwa, and also just painting a bad picture of the country to the international community. I believe that is a problem that as an African people, we should actually look out. When you see a country trying to come from the ravages of sanctions like Zimbabwe is doing, a country trying so hard to set up industries regardless of the sanctions that have been bedeviled it for over 3 decades. And then you see an opposition party going out there to speak ill about the regime and maybe woo these sanctions to be imposed, more sanctions to be imposed on the country. I believe that's a big problem. And as an African people, we should first of all learn to talk about our own countries. We should learn to talk about the good things that are happening here in Africa. When we see President Uhuru Kenyatta here in Kenya, for example, trying to do whatever development that he's doing in terms of even improving healthcare, that is the same thing that Zimbabwe is doing, and that is a good thing for the African continent. We should not be always people who wish that bad things happen in our countries so that we can find a place on the table to talk about, to discuss things with the donors and other merchants of regime change, and we are able maybe to bring down these regimes. We should also find time to celebrate these governments that are doing incredibly well in Africa. And today, I would really like just to, Dr. Masanga, to laud whatever is happening in Zimbabwe. More road networks being opened, more hospitals being built, more jobs are being created in Zimbabwe. And we've seen even the partnership that the government of President Mnangagwa has been doing with foreign countries in terms of bringing more vaccines to Zimbabwe. And we believe with the current situation in COVID pandemic globally, the country that will be able to vaccinate more people will be the country that will be able to open up their economy so that people are able to go out there, work and earn money for themselves. And that being the priority of the government of Zimbabwe, I believe they are going to be amongst the first African countries actually to open up the country to ensure that people move around, they engage in trade, and therefore the economy is able to be brought into normalcy. I submit, Dr. Masanga.
Thank you very much. That is the way to go. And the next time from today on Sunday, don't expect us to be just being bookworms. Let's come when you have your topic of a country, the nature that you want to speak about. First of all, before we call in another person to speak, we want the studio to show us one clip. This week, where is Africa heading? This week, President Macron of France called all African youths to come to Paris. And listen, one of the African youths from Kenya, by name, a young lady by name Odera, spoke so well and gave down the basis of what it is to have a very serious situation in Africa. Can we see this clip? Maybe it will open us our eyes. Is the clip ready, Miriam?
Yes, it's a.
Yeah, let's see it. All of us.
Mr. President, a new generation that is not hampered by the burdens of nostalgia we are ready to look at Africa-France relations with fresh eyes, with optimism and with confidence. To paraphrase Nelson Mandela, our choices must reflect our hopes and not our fears. We are not afraid to take our responsibility. You must find the courage to take yours, because France cannot remain trapped in an outdated vision of the African continent. We have come to propose solutions and to dialogue with you because we have a different, a more admirable future to propose. Not necessarily because we are going to be comfortable about what will change, but because at this point, it is the only thing that makes sense. But before we present this vision to you, Mr. President, there are some profound truths that need to be told in order to clear the air. And that is why I invite Adele on stage to present the facts. Thank you very much.
Bonjour. Je m'appelle
Hello, I'm Adele Onyango, and I come from Kenya.
And that is exactly as far as my French will take me. So, I'm really honored and happy to be here today, because I think it is no secret that the current relationship between Africa and France is complicated. And in order for us to build a relationship that addresses issues that affect not only Africa, not only France, but the globe, then it's important for us to interrogate this very complicated relationship and ask ourselves three things. One, what is not efficient? Two, what is not ethical? Three, where do we see integrity gaps? And to be able to do these three things, we're going to have to be brutally honest. The history of colonization is understandably very important. For Africa, it's a path that is as painful as it is destructive. And the effects of colonization can still be felt to date. And I'm not just saying economically, but even on an interpersonal level. We, as Africans, feel the pain of colonization every single day. Now, the lack of a clear and strong acknowledgement of the continent's pain on this destructive past results in skepticism. And the absence of actions that will further push the acknowledgement is also a major issue in the current France and Africa relationship. In fact, the air of denial that France chooses to sit in is uncomfortable, not only for Africa, but also for France, and it does no good for either one of us. How can you trust the source of your pain when the source doesn't acknowledge it? What we end up with is skepticism on what exactly does France stand for. And so we ask you, Mr. President, how strong can a relationship that is built on pain, that is built on skepticism, and that is built on lack of trust really be? We, not just as a team here, but all of us in this room, and the 5,000 who helped with the report, and the millions more on the continent and off of the continent, want a commitment from you, Mr. President, that you will join us in the eradication of La France Afrique, which is a very unfair dominance, and it has to end. Furthermore, the breakdown in understanding what France fully stands for is fueled by the continued collaborations that France has with agencies, leaders, and individuals who have glaring integrity issues, whilst on the other hand, claiming to be standing for human rights. So on one hand, we have France that is entrenched in issues around racism, around exploitative dominance, and whilst on the other hand, they're still claiming to teach others about democracy. These are two profiles that one cannot fill at the same time. And when you try to do that, we find it rather arrogant. What it creates is a cognitive dissonance, which is that discomfort you feel because of these two conflicting values. It not only doesn't make sense, it is unsustainable, it births a negative perception, and an ambiguity in knowing once again what values does France stand for. Now, it is very clear, because we are all here, that the current relationship is imbalanced. It's not collaborative, and in some instances, it's exploitative. We have social impact solutions built without any input from relevant African civil society organizations who are a resource when it comes to really understanding problems on the ground and creating solutions that run efficiently. And they're a resource that Africa is willing to lend to France. Let's also not forget that whilst we in this room are here because we want to change and repair this relationship, there are some who are benefiting from this current dysfunctional relationship, be it private businesses from France on the continent with non-ethical practices, or corrupt individuals and groups from both France and Africa. This group, and the lack of a very loud and public condemnation of this, obviously fuels skepticism. So this honest interrogation is a very important first step, because the strengths and weaknesses of this current relationship will dictate the success or failure of our collective future relationships. But we are not only telling you what's not working, we are very solution.
Welcome back, viewers. This is Africa Showdown from Punchline Africa Television. Today we have changed the modus operandi. Each panelist who comes with his own country that he wants to speak. Thank you very much, Daniel Wesonga, for speaking about France. You have watched that clip, all of you, about Zimbabwe, sorry. You have watched the clip. You have seen where we are heading. You know what we want. You know what the younger generation in Africa wants. Let's come, anybody else, who is ready?
Let me just come up Ethiopia. Okay. Let me just ask my fellow viewers and my fellow panelists, which is the headquarters for African Union? Is it Addis Ababa?
Yes.
And if that is Addis Ababa, do you know, Dr. Masanga, what is happening in Tigray? People are starving to death and nobody is talking, Dr. Masanga. I thought if the African Union headquarters was in Addis Ababa, that the people of even Ethiopia should get more action, Dr. Masanga. So from where I sit, I am so much concerned as a humanitarian person, Dr. Masanga, that we cannot wait until the people of Tigray die because of hunger and starvation is when we are going to declare a national, an intercontinental disaster, Dr. Masanga. I'm appealing to the Prime Minister of Ethiopia and the chairperson of African Union, Mr. Masanga, Dr. Masanga, that they take action. And I even want to appeal to our President, Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, now when we talk about peace and security. If people don't even have food to eat, Dr. Masanga, their security is not assured. So there is a deep concern on what is happening in Tigray, and the people of Tigray are dying. And as an Punch African TV, Dr. Masanga, I don't know if the government of Ethiopia is not going to do anything. We start appealing to the people of Africa, Dr. Masanga, that we pool resources and we go and save our brothers and sisters in Tigray. I submit.
Thank you very much, Professor Gerard Onyari. Ethiopia is in dire need. Tigray, the people are dying. Every night, every morning. The human rights abuses continue to go unabated in Tigray. Oh, my Africa. Oh, my Africa. While Daniel puts out Zimbabwe as growing economy infrastructure, there is a crisis being developed in another Red Sea. This morning at 4 a.m., I was reading about the strategic placing of strategic arms, very sophisticated arms by Russia and Turkey in the Red Sea in preparation for a war between Ethiopia and Egypt. I am very scared, African. Tawish, or whoever is ready, come out with your topic. Yes.
Sure. Thank you so much, Dr. Masanga, and thank you to colleague panelists and all who are watching this program. Sure, Dr. Masanga, and that is where I'm headed to. In fact, I was just about to make my submission only for Professor Nyare to actually take over from me. But that said, Dr. Masanga, I've picked Sudan as my country because of what is happening, the turmoil that is taking place in Sudan. We all understand there have been widespread protest in Khartoum in as far as the transitional administration is concerned. The people of Sudan, as we speak today, are agitating, and they want, of course, the governance or administration to be taken back to the military. Dr. Masanga, what am I trying to say here? We look into how President Omar al-Bashir was ousted and ceremoniously from power, I think somewhere in 2019, and ever since the president was ousted from power, I mean, the people of Sudan and Sudan itself has never seen or known what peace is, Dr. Masanga. It speaks about why we do not appreciate the leaders, why we do not appreciate people who have, of course, led us. Case of Sudan today, Dr. Masanga, when we have such kind of protests, people do not have even trust. They don't have confidence with the transitional administration that has been put in place. They would rather have the military actually take over again so that they can have to negotiate and navigate their way to get another clear roadmap in getting the administration that they deserve. Dr. Masanga in itself, of course, fingers have been pointed to former president, of course, allies, that maybe they could be the ones behind those demonstrations that are taking place in Khartoum to destabilize the government of Sudan. But far from it, Dr. Masanga, I suppose, having been a leader in that particular nation for all those years, President Omar al-Bashir must have actually instilled an ideology to the people of Sudan. And most of them had believed in him and his leadership. And maybe the best way forward would have been to allow him to have a smooth transition and hand over power to somebody else other than what we saw in terms of the coup that actually ousted him from power. Because again, such kind of instances, such kind of actions, Dr. Masanga, in the past and as we continue to witness today in the African continent, have never served I've never served to the best interest of the people. Look unto Ivory Coast as we speak today. Isn't it coming back to sanity after the return of Gbagbo? Gbagbo has even announced that he has announced a political party. And who knows, maybe he will go back to contest for presidency in the next election. That is the kind of working relationship. Whether someone is coming in or exiting from power, we need to allow them to exit with dignity, but not with the kind of actually things that we saw in Sudan. Because as we speak today, those people will rather wish that Omar al-Bashir will still be in power as we speak. I submit, Dr.
Thank you very much. He has mentioned Sudan. About 3 months ago, Miriam, in Mombasa, in Sarova Sands Hotel, you and I, we had a doctor from our doctor friend, a lady by name Halima, from Halima Mohammed something, Dr. Halima Mohammed from Khartoum. He said there are so many military militias in Khartoum, David, we don't know. There will be a coup anytime. And these uprisings, demonstrations indicate what Sudan is today in Khartoum. Next, anybody who is ready again? We have 2 people left, Joseph Nachama and Samson Omechi. Any country that you want to speak about?
Thank you, Dr. Masanga.
Yes.
And Miriam.
Yeah.
For me, I want to talk about Somalia. And I think Somalia is among those countries like Ethiopia and Sudan. There is a lot of instability in those countries. And when we talk about the African rising, there is no way Africa can rise when other countries are still struggling. So we must address the country of Somalia. Despite the fact that they are also ruling, Somalia is our neighbor as Kenyans. And I don't understand what you can talk when we know that even those people that are been in government in Somalia, they operate from Kenya, Nairobi. They just live around this city here. And now they're saying that there is the government of Kenya has mischief or some malice. But my submission is, we must, as a country and as Africans, we must be very careful to make sure that when we rise, we must make sure that even in Somalia, there is stability, political stability, which can now ensure even a conducive environment for investment and for economic growth. Somalia has got a lot of resources as a country, only that there is the issue of leadership and the political instability. My take is, as Kenyans, and I call upon our president because he's a good president. President Uhuru Kenyatta is a gentleman. He can as well reach out to the president of Somalia, and they can as well sit down and agree on the way forward. Because the ruling from the other side, it cannot be accepted from our side. Because our president has taken a position which we also agree with, that the judgment cannot stand because of the circumstances surrounding our resources, and as a nation, we cannot agree that is the position. Now, it is us as Kenyans. Most Somalians, they live in Kenya. In fact, they are the righteous. They have taken the numbers. And there is no way Kenya can grow without the peace in Somalia, without the political stability in Somalia, without these people coming together and agree on the government. Because Somalia cannot rely on support from outside forever. It cannot work that way. Time has come. The people, the leadership in Somalia must sit down and agree the way forward, because without the stability in Somalia, without the peace in Somalia, Kenya will never have peace. Extremists come from Somalia. And once we sort out the stability, the political stability in Somalia, the peace in Somalia, the government in Somalia, and then we are assured that now even Kenya, we can grow and Africa can grow. That is my submission.
Thank you very much, Ongera, for this good submission calling for unity, for dialogue, for engagement. Isn't it too much, too late? Do we think there will be another chance? Has Somalia left it too late? Has Kenya left it too late? I can see Dr. Joseph Nachama's hand up. Dr. Nachama, take it. Take it away for us.
Thank you, Dr. I had used an instance also Somalia, but since Samson has spoken, I want to use it as a prototype to address leaders of the other unstable nations in the continent. And as I was thinking, as you brought this subject, I thought of now addressing the leaders of Somalia. Maybe they have not heard this. Strategy in nation building, and it has taken so long since Siad Barre was overthrown. And I want to tell them, and I hope other leaders are listening to us because they are going to benefit. Nation building, Dr. Masanga, is a term of enormous scope, and our leaders, especially the leaders in Somalia, are listening. You know, it has taken them too long, so let me tell them that it includes the various processes involved in organizing their people into a strong, prosperous communities living within the borders of Somalia as a state. And Dr. Masanga, for me, nation building, and I hope other leaders are listening because we are using Somalia as a prototype, as much is to do with the philosophy as with the processes. You must have a philosophy to rebuild your nation, not to show side shows. When you have not even used the resources on land, you are rushing, being cheated by other people to the sea, the maritime issues. And Dr. Masanga, I think the people of Somalia needs to know that strategy has to be viewed in a holistic context. And for their purpose, they shall attempt to understand building Somalia in terms of seeking to achieve two goals, which I think, if I can remember, the physical cohesion and the political coherence. Because Kenya, we have hosted so many refugees. So we need them to focus on these two terms, the cohesion and the coherence. Therefore, the peoples of Somalia and the leaders in particular, I want to tell them that the attributes of nationhood change as nations, of course, progress from childhood to adolescence and maturity. So are the needs of the people. By now, they should have matured and lead their country. Instead, Kenya using a lot of money to host these people. So we want to appeal them instead of causing a conflict with your good neighbor, our country, Kenya. And we need to thank the president for being actually noble in terms of patient and very diplomatic. And let the president very much of Somalia know our president is very diplomatic and a patient man. That is why I've chosen this country. When I listened even the verdict from the international court, which is trying to cause conflict, and the leaders, citizens of Somalia, don't listen to those side shows. Those have hidden hands. We are, I want to tell Somalia, as a country, we are neighbors. So they need to be cohesive. I think because of time, let me tell the Somalia leaders, a cohesive nation is a nation which is physically united and is not destabilized by divisive forces, such as ethnic and tribal and regionals. Don't agree, you, the Somalia people, I hope through your leaders. And of course, now a cohesive nation where you belong, you, Somalia, on the other hand, is vulnerable, and you are vulnerable to such disruptive tendencies which you have accepted to cause confusion, especially very much. You know, Dr. Masanga, in ambiguity lies the greatest opportunity. And that is what some of these leaders are using, but I'm appealing to them through Punchline Africa. What is the priority as I end you, the Somalia, as a nation? The priority now is to secure your physical and legal integrity of your state so that you combat the centrifugal forces existing which you want to destabilize your country. That's where the focus should be, not to antagonize my country, Kenya. And remember, finally, you, the Somalia leaders, remember this. If you don't build the cohesion and the coherence, remember that the cohesion without the coherence is like a body without the soul. So I want to appeal to the Somalia state to build both the soul and the body. I think, Dr. Masanga, through you, Miriam, my words may be borrowed by other countries also because I use Somalia as a pilot address. Miriam, I submit.
Thank you very much. Dr. Nachama, you have put a footnote on Samson or Ogera's analysis, and you have increased, you actually labeled, given solutions. Are we too late? Are we doing things like United Nations? We come too late. we do very little, and we continue helping to helpless citizens of these countries, of all of them that you have mentioned. Miriam, your country.
All right, maybe I'll just add on what others have said, and just going back to that video we played earlier.
We need Miriam, we need a country like South Sudan.
I am coming there, because some countries I wanted to speak about, Daniel already did. I had Sudan in mind, and also Somalia. So I'll just piggyback on that, please, if you may allow.
Okay.
So the video that we played earlier, Adele Onyango brought up a couple of very important issues there that, highlighted, I think, what we've been saying here for a long time, the relationship between France and Africa, which is quite imbalanced. And on today's paper, Sunday Nation, AU seems to have, responded to that in some way, because now the African Union may in future reject donations with strings attached in an attempt to make the bloc self-sufficient. The AU Commission Chairman Musa Faki Mohammed told Foreign Affairs ministers from members of states on Thursday that as part of reforms, the organization would not take money from entities that seek to divert it from its core values. Mohammed said this during the opening of the 39th ordinary session of the Executive Council of African Union. And I think we've raised questions before, that started with Professor Jared Onyari. What is happening today in Tigray? Tigrayans are dying, and not because they don't have the food, because the government of Ethiopia and Eritrea has refused for humanitarian aid to get to the people of Tigray. That is the situation there in Ethiopia. And our African Union headquarters is in Ethiopia. So now that is quite something that Africans have chosen to remain quiet about, and which is worrying. And the rest of us, I think we have a right to speak on behalf of these African brothers and sisters who are suffering there in Tigray. So African Union now apparently wants to be independent, as we've spoken here so many times before. African Union is not independent, and of course this is because as much as African Union has 55 member states, we are not able to fund our own African Union. So by Mohammed saying now African Union will have to be independent, will that mean now we'll fully take control and fund the runnings of our union, and will that make a difference? And is this just something he's saying because of the noise that is being made around, or this is a new direction that African Union seeks to take? And so they're saying these donations that are being given to the African continent through the African Union, they come with a lot of strings attached, and it's about time that we removed ourselves from that. So it will be interesting to see how this will work for us moving forward, seeing that we've been very dependent on other foreign powers to even fund our own African Union and our own affairs here in the continent. So that is just my general view on what we've been talking about today.
Oh, thank you very much, Miriam. I will take the mantle for you and discuss South Sudan and discuss Nigeria briefly and discuss Cameroon. It is good today that the African Union, I'm going to make point by point. Point number one, it is good today the African Union has accepted, after reading my letter last week, which actually exposed the loopholes of why do we link ourselves to a former colonial master who has bought African Union, who has left us in the middle of a desert when African countries are having war. Point number two, it is good that today AU comes out and tells us how much of this money comes from these partners who actually follow us and then tie us to their money, that if you don't do this, we shall not do this. Point number three, the countries of one, South Sudan, is bleeding quietly. And the South Sudan remains one of the sick children of Africa. Therefore, I call upon the people of the world, especially the Great Lakes Region, East African Community, IGAD, to look at the peace process, to equip the government in Juba, to allow the government, the system that we put there by IGAD, by through the peace process that was badly done to keep it afloat, because Miriam, the situation there is deteriorating day by day. Some of the soldiers that were put in those camps have gone away with arms. We don't know what could come out again. Point number 5, the country of Nigeria. Or let me say, Nigeria as a state embarrasses us on the African continent. Nigeria has not looked at its human rights record. Nigeria kills its people every day. Nigeria imprisons, cuts, slaughters, butchers, maims, rapes its people every day. Nigeria, with a population of 200 million people, continues to be a disgrace for Africa. A population that we thought it could actually help Africa to grow economically. Corruption, no infrastructure in some places. Money is being stashed outside. Money is taken by few individuals. Tribal killings by the Fulani herdsmen against the Biafrans must be condemned. And we shall continue to condemn the government in Nigeria to change its methods of operation as far as politics of Africa is concerned. Less than that, we don't have an AU. We don't have AU standing united. Point number 7, the country that I want to touch on is Cameroon. Today, as we speak, the people of Amazonia continue to die, continue to languish in poverty, in torture. They are maimed, grass sacked, houses are burnt, killed, women are raped. Women, Miriam, in Nigeria, in Cameroon, in Amazonia, have been living in these conditions for more than 7 years now. Since 1961, resolution 1608 that gave Amazonians the right of independence, nothing has happened in this West African state. We still have a problem, and that problem lingers on, my fellow panelists. That is where we should always focus our input to make sure that the people of Amazonia get independence. The last country that I want to talk about is linked to Ethiopia, Egypt, that is Libya. Many of you must have forgotten about Libya. That was once a powerful country. A powerful country that gave us hope that Africa will rise and shine again. The entire Africa, as you look at it, the last week we had Mwalimu Julius Nyerere's memorial. Then we have Samora Machel's memorial. The two great sons died almost at the same time.
Sankara's too was yesterday, I think.
And then we had Sankara's memorial. The sons of Africa that passed away standing against imperial machinery. Africa has come an age. We have come a long way to stand and say enough is enough. Libya needs its own sovereignty. The sovereignty of Libya is being divided by Turkey. Turkey has invaded Libya. The African Union has supported a rebel called General Khalifa Haftar, who was cut with the help of UAE, Egypt, and France. They have taken part of the Libyan territory, divided it, made it a hub of terrorists in Sahara. I submit, therefore, that looking at those, Miriam, those are the countries that matter, not matter Those are the countries at the peril of disaster, which could collapse Africa. But let's come back humbly. Let's look at the positive side of Africa. Kenya is a positive side of Africa. Let's look at the positive side of Africa. Zimbabwe is rising. Positive side of Africa. Let's look at the positive side of Africa. Rwanda is rising. Is a positive side of Africa. In terms of peace, stability, economy, Rwanda is doing very well. But there is also a threat to peace that Rwanda and Uganda have closed each other borders. Let's look at the positive aspect of Uganda, for example. A part of Africa is rising, it has food, but what kills it is corruption and the deficit of democratic reforms which need to be done. Have I taken you across Africa? Tanzania, look at what Tanzania is. Today, Madame Suluhu is saying this, let me bring in Tony Blair. Can Tony Blair heal the wounds of Tanzania? Can Tony Blair stand with the people of Tanzania and create a conducive climate? I don't think so. It is Africa that will rise and shine. When you get that Africa that rises and shines is when you can get the best of our poor continent. With my summary, therefore, I would like to ask, and for you to hear this from me, that we are in a terrible situation as Africans. Why are we in that situation? First of all, we are in that situation because we found ourselves shrugging off political colonization. Miriam, if you are, all of you on the panel now, I want to read, I want to say something for you. When you watch the television, all televisions across the world, they start with Asia. What do they talk about? They talk about China sending rockets in space station. Russia unveils supersonic ballistic missiles. Let's come to Europe. They are talking about France signs a submarine deal with Australia. Germany starts a mass production of electric cars and vehicles. And Europe talks about climate change. Let's talk about America. In America, the television stations are showing us Rocket Lucy lifts off with 12-year-old journey to Jupiter. Employment rate shoots up historic high in America. And about the vaccine and how America can get out of the pandemic. Contrary to this medium, Africa, when we come to the African story, my dear sister and the gentleman on the panel, what do you hear? Successful coup in Guinea, chaos in Libya, school girls kidnapped in Nigeria, demonstration is in Khartoum, Sudan. Thank you for that person who brought Sudan. I don't know who it was. Who was talking about Sudan? Was it Professor Onyali or who? Tawish talked about Sudan. Corruption stalls Africa in Kenya, in Uganda, in Zimbabwe. People are talking about corruption. 12 million vaccinations, donations. Succession politics, who will take over from me How will it be? I want my son, my brother, my sister to take over. Mudslides in my own county, in where I was born. Last week, 2 days ago, another mudslide came because they have cut all the trees on the mountain. People have been told not to cut the trees. They continue to cut. And the timber is sold. The charcoal is sold. People who buy the charcoal, why don't you refuse the charcoal? That is the Africa we have. Miriam, with this, where are we heading as Africa? My answer to all this, with all the countries that you have explained, we are heading to a disaster, a very big disaster. We have our agenda analysis remodified by the African Union, which have been pushing and pushing until now. The truth comes out because most leaders read my paper because the papers were on their Twitter handles. I delivered them for them to read. Now they come out to say any donation that comes, because they allowed the donations to override patriotism, upon which African Union was therefore formed. I submit therefore that the African journey is not a good journey. It is a journey littered with pitfalls of insanity, corruption, military coups coming back, and a pitfall of we don't understand the democracy, Miriam. You have not mentioned the word democracy. Because where is democracy? What is it? What is it? It's better to have a secure country than to have democracy. How do you eat democracy then? You don't. Okay, look at how many people in Africa know what an election is. Kenya here, we are 9 months away from election. But we are just like 2 months to come, and we want to finish each other. Ruto is insulting Raila. Every minute he wakes up on his cars, which are government cars given by the government, which is a ghost worker. You know, we have a problem there. So this is the Africa that we have. Viewers and the panel, we have 4 minutes. Each of you will be given 1 minute each to finish and summarize. Don't pass 1 minute, please. That is Africa Showdown. I will start with Joseph Nyachama.
Thank you, Dr. for that. It's really an eye-opener that when other countries are progressing towards the vision which they envisioned as a state or a nation, Africa, we are speeding on an opposite direction. For me, Dr. Masanga, what I need to advise those in the steering, I want them to learn this lesson. Your direction is more important than your speed. You know, they confuse speed as a strategy. The more you sprint toward the wrong direction, the more you are lost. Like in Kenya now, we are speeding to election destination. Without the direction, Dr. Masanga, without the vision, nothing will come forth in Africa. They confuse direction with the speed. They must know speed is not a strategy, and they go back to their respective visions to change Africa. And finally, my former words, we don't lack resources in Africa, we lack resourcefulness. May God put these words into your hearts. I submit, Doctor.
Thank you very much. Daniel.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Masanga, David. And mine will be to extend gratitude for Punchline Africa TV for being a platform where we can be able to dissect and discuss African affairs And of course, it is from these discussions that all the stakeholders and those involved get insights on how to handle various African matters, from the economy, conflicts, and all the cooperation that we need as an African people. Mine will be to say that Africa is a very, very blessed continent. Africa has full of potentials. If we only could concentrate on what our African leaderships are doing and ignore the noises of the naysayers who are in Europe, in America, and all the other countries that have always been conniving to ensure that they bring conflict in Africa and derail us of our development. So to me, I think today is just a day to portray and be able to project the good things that are coming from the African continent, as Dr. Nyanchama has said. I submit, Dr. Masanga.
Thank you. Finally, our guest, in 1 minute, your parting shot.
Dr. Masanga, it's sad or terrible that we are not heading towards the right direction. But my parting thought is that African must look for African solutions, African challenges, and avoid the over-reliance with the Western side. African Union and African leaders must put their house in order so that we can emerge as a continent, as a strong country, as a strong one, so that we can compete effectively.
Thank you very much. Viewers, Miriam, your last word. How did this time today conclude from this way?
It's okay. Well, from the conversation we've had this afternoon, I think Africa has to stop and relook at our engagement, in the sense that, is it serving us? Is it bringing anything good to the continent? Because for a long time, what has been happening is these foreigners, these outside, powers, they come to Africa, with their own foreign policy that benefits them. It's about time that we look at policies and things that benefit us. So we have to relook at our engagements with these powers out there, as just to retaliate what Adele Onyango said in that video before. And also, there seems to be a crisis looming that has been brewing in Sudan. African Union has to move with speed and look into what is happening in Sudan before it gets out of hand and they run there the last minute, because things are not good in Sudan.
Thank you very much, Miriam, for that. We predicted that. We predicted many other things. If Sudan collapses, then South Sudan will definitely collapse. And therefore, we shall have quite a lot of difficulties. I want to thank all of you, the panel, this afternoon, those who are here and those who have left already, for a very fruitful engagement that you have taken us through. I want to thank Miriam and the studios back in Nairobi, Kenya. Thank you very much for all your tenacity and the steadfastness that you have conducted the affairs of Punchline Africa Television. Tomorrow is another week. Miriam, I thank you very much, and I hope tomorrow you take the fort. Don't forget, COP26 in Scotland, Glasgow, is coming. The weather is becoming a problem. Morality is becoming a problem. Africa, what went wrong? We are sinking and sinking low. Every time we see pictures, they don't depict us in the right direction. Thank you very much, all of you. This station, therefore, is for Africa, with Africa, by Africa.